Thank you for coming out tonight. I know I have 10 minutes, so I'm briefly, for those of you who don't know my background, I'm going to blow through that very quickly, and then I want to share with you my vision for the Commonwealth. I graduated from Liberty University. I grew up a military kid. That's what brought me to Virginia. I lived in Hampton Roads area. My dad was stationed at Langley Air Force Base, and then finished school up here in Fairfax area. And went to Liberty and came out and worked at the United States Senate at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee under Senator Jesse Helms. Worked for the governor briefly. Also went back to William & Mary to get my master's degree in public policy, and went out into the private sector and did work in business and IT for a number of years. Was politically involved through that whole process and found myself getting very disenfranchised with Republicans. We had Republicans who were voting for massive tax increases. We had Republicans who were killing pro-life legislation in committee. We had Republicans who were sponsoring in-state tuition for illegal immigration. And I thought, hello? And so I went to go work for a political organization that started challenging those Republicans who weren't acting like Republicans. And did that for a number of years and started my own business and homeschooled my children, and then got very involved in the Tea Party movement, as Scott was sharing with you. Was president of Richmond Tea Party and chairman of the Virginia Tea Party Federation. And my reason for being involved in the Tea Party movement is very simple. I found it very refreshing that people did not give a flying rip which party you were with. They wanted you to obey the Constitution and stop the spending. And I thought, praise the Lord. Some people that are not just going to make decisions based on an R or D after their name. And so got very involved in the Tea Party movement. Now, if I were to say to you, broke and $15 trillion in debt, unsustainable, morally corrupt, what would you think of? Washington, D.C. We have a $15 trillion debt. $15 trillion. And I would submit to you that all we've done is switch between the left lane and the right lane as we've driven off a cliff. Because that has happened as a result of both Republicans and Democrats spending. You can't be a Republican and say that you're not for raising taxes, but that you are for spending trillions and trillions of dollars of money you don't have. That's not being conservative. And you and I know that when you're in a hole, especially a $15 trillion hole, you just stop digging. Just stop digging. Or you will dig your way to China, which is exactly what we have done. Now, my definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and think you're going to get a different result. Re-electing career politicians over and over and over again and somehow think that you're going to get a different result with that career politician is just pure insanity. What we need is to elect people who reflect our communities and our churches and our businesses to stop that insanity in Washington, D.C. So I believe that we have a gut check time for America. I've told people all over the Commonwealth that I have been involved in the political arena as an activist for a long time. And it was always about fighting, opposing, or supporting specific pieces of legislation, like opposing the gas tax increase or being supportive of pro-life legislation. But never once in the history of doing this work for 15 years did I feel like my nation as a whole, that constitutional republic was at stake. And that's how I feel now. People ask me, why are you doing this now in your time of life? Because I'm not worried about 24 years from now. I'm worried about the next 24 months. I don't know what the next 24 months will hold. And I don't trust the career politicians to get it done. We've got to do something, and we've got to do it now. And that's why I'm running for office. I want to share with you 4 key things that I'm running on in this campaign. The first thing, as you can probably imagine, is spending. $15 trillion debt. $15 trillion. When I started in the Tea Party movement, it was 10. Now it's 15. We've got to ask ourselves what it means to be conservative. Because I hear it on the TV all the time. What does it mean to be conservative? Does it mean that we're going to add $3 trillion to the national debt? Does it mean we're going to vote for 40,000 earmarks? Does it mean we're going to vote to federalize education with no child left behind? Does it mean we're going to say we're for free markets but support ethanol subsidies? Does it mean that we're going to support hate crimes legislation so that crimes committed against a homosexual is a worse offense than crimes committed against my 5-year-old? Are those things conservative? The reason I'm running is because that's the record of George Allen. We can't go back to the way we've done things. And I've heard him say time and time again, well, that was a different era. So apparently there's times when it's okay to spend irresponsibly, and there's times where it's not okay to spend irresponsibly. If we're going to get $15 trillion under control, the first thing we have to do is we've got to ask ourselves, what is the role of the federal government? See, we've got to be able, as conservatives, to ask ourselves this question. What powers belong at the federal level, what belongs at the state, and what belongs in the private sector? We need to ask ourselves that. Did the Founding Fathers have it right when they said few and defined powers are in Washington, D.C.? If we believe that, then we start looking at things like the Department of Energy that have not made us energy independent, and that was the sole purpose for which it was established by Jimmy Carter. Or we start looking at things like the Department of Education. The liberals would have you think that it has been created when God created Adam and Eve. It is new since Jimmy Carter. Education was always a local and state issue. It should be a decision by the parents and local government. It is in the Virginia Constitution to provide a quality public education to every citizen of Virginia. The Virginia Constitution, not the federal U.S. Constitution. Or Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. You explain to me why the federal government is involved in mortgage banking if we say we believe in free markets. We've got to ask those fundamental questions, and then we can go into what I'm calling my 2 cents. My 2 cents for getting the budget under control is a very simple approach. Number one, you freeze spending. Now, that sounds simple to you, but that's considered a crazy idea in Washington, D.C. We freeze spending, which is a $3.6 trillion budget, and then every year we cut 2 cents out of every federal dollar spent. My 2 cents, 2 cents. If we take that very reasonable approach, we balance the budget in 5 years. 5. Not 26 years. 5. And once we have balanced the budget and we're in the black, another crazy idea. We only spend what we take in. If we freeze, cut 2 pennies off, and in 5 years, once we're in black, only spend what we take in, we will have the budget balanced. The second thing, spending. The second thing is tax reform, because people ask me, okay, now you've balanced the budget, but now how are you going to pay the $15 trillion down? Look, the Republicans and the Democrats, you know that the tax code is just a way to pay off all the favors, all the cronyism that goes on in both parties. If we're not willing to have that reality check with ourselves, we will not improve. I support eliminating the federal income tax, the corporate income tax, the AMT taxes, the capital gains taxes, eliminating all those and moving to a national sales tax or a consumption tax or a fair tax, whichever term you're familiar with. The federal government should get one bite at the apple. One bite. They shouldn't be able to come at you 10 different ways to take your money. They should tell you one time, and that's it. I think it's absolutely horrendous that they can basically garnish your wages every 2 weeks. And then you think it's a victory when they decide to give you some of your money back on April 15th. If we move to a consumption tax, it is estimated that we will bring between $10 and $15 trillion of American business back to the United States. Trillion with a T. Secondly, everybody pays taxes. You don't continue to have half of America pay for the other half of America. All your illegal immigrants are now paying taxes. And the most important thing, I hear a lot of conversation about jobs. Every debate, 16 presidential debates that we've seen so far? If we move to a consumption tax, all the goods that are imported from China and everywhere else around the world are now paying taxes. The tax rate is equal for American business and Chinese businesses, not a 35% corporate tax rate on American businesses and China getting away with nothing, and then we wonder why we can't compete. There's no reason why we can't manufacture and make things in this country again if we're smart. We hurt ourselves and wonder why we can't be competitive. Spending, my 2 cents. Tax reform, which is the fair tax. The third thing is regulations. I have been traveling the Commonwealth for the last year. We are proactively suffocating and killing jobs in this country. Proactively. I was in Galax. They made American furniture. 1,800 plus employees 8 years ago, down to 27 employees. No factories. We have got to repeal Obamacare, repeal Dodd-Frank, and put the EPA on a chokehold, in a choke collar. And lastly, since I see I'm getting timed here, it's going to sound like a strange policy, public policy proposal. But more than anything, if we hope to accomplish what I've just said, we need virtuous leadership. John Adams said, our founding father, that our constitutional republic would be wholly inadequate without virtuous leadership. We have so much corruption and cronyism in both parties. And if we hope to do any of those things and protect life and protect our liberty and to protect our property, then it does matter the character of the person that you elect and not just their ideas. And that's why I would ask you to consider me in this U.S. Senate campaign, because we have a lot of ground to cover and we need your help in Stafford and Spotsylvania and Fredericksburg City. Well, I appreciate you all coming out tonight. I hope that you like what you've heard. I just think, as I said before, the definition of insanity is to do the things over and over again and think you're going to get a different result. I don't think having a career politician, whether it's George Allen or Tim Kaine, is the answer. Whether you're looking at family issues, life issues, or fiscal issues, he's been bad on all of them. And you can't tell me a different era gives you different results. That's what got us into the mess we're in. Now the question is, who's in the best position to take on George Allen in the primary? And I believe that I am, based on the grassroots support, the grassroots that we've had, the fundraising we've been able to achieve, the endorsements we've been able to make. All those things combined put us in a position to be able to win in June, but none of it will work unless I have your help. And we have 4.5 months to put this plan together. We have a very organized, structured plan to win in June, but it requires boots on the ground. And we're looking for those people all over the state. We actually have work in the back of the room that if you like what you've heard, we have a Walk for Liberty program that we're looking for people to help us with. And that Walk for Liberty program is basically going out and telling people I've met her, I'm supporting her, here's information on her, and getting petition signatures while you're at it. 300,000 votes to win, and it can be done with the grassroots. We don't need $5 million to do it. What we need are people with passion. And I'll close with this. President Garfield said, and a number of other people have said it before, is that Congress is simply a reflection of the culture and those who show up to vote. If we don't like Congress, we only have ourselves to blame. How passionate and determined and committed are we to changing what we see? How much conviction do we have? I believe, as you heard me say, that we're lacking righteousness and virtue up in Washington more than anything. It will not change unless you get involved. And I don't mean just showing up to hear a candidate, but I mean getting behind that candidate and giving them all you have for the next 5 months and then on to November. That's the only thing that's going to change Washington, D.C. Look, the Democrats and the progressives and the socialists, never grow weary. They never stop. I just knocked on the door of a communist this past weekend, and she's been at it since 1980 and has not grown weary. The Republican establishment never grows weary. They protect their turf. And we as conservatives just want to be left alone. We just want to be able to homeschool our kids. We want to start our own business because we believe in individuality. But if you really appreciate that, you need to get involved because it's at stake. And I need your help to do it. So I'd ask for your help tonight because we have 4.5 months to protect all those liberties precious to us. Thanks.